Well, good. Okay, so we'll see if anybody else joins in person. It's not uncommon for that to happen after
Sure.
a little bit of time, so we'll see. All right, so I have an interesting thing to share, though, especially so for you, Michael, where you have been to this class before. So there is an agent that I talk about almost every time I teach the class. I probably don't do it every time, but just about every time that I teach the class about
Tonya?
this agent that has used this process. And yesterday, I actually went to a CE class that was outside of our office. I went to
Okay.
this class. And while sitting in the class, I noticed her sitting kind of diagonal from me during the class. And so I got the opportunity actually even to just visit with her for a few minutes yesterday. And it was interesting because I said to her, the first question well, we sat and talked for a minute, but then I said, okay, I just want you to know, Tonya, that I still
Tonya
talk.
Messina.
What?
Tonya Messina.
Yeah, I said, Tonya, I still talk about you in my class. And so I said, in fact, I'm going to be teaching it tomorrow, and I will be talking about you tomorrow. So I then said, so I just want to ask you a few questions about now, when I taught her, we always called this your jelly bean jar. Instead of talking
Right.
about SOI, we called it jelly bean jar. And I said, so are you still working your jelly bean jar? And she's like, of course. That's it. That's what I do. And she said, what was funny is she said, I went to the bank the other day and was depositing a check or something. And she said the person at the bank asked her, um, what kind of marketing do you do as a real estate agent? And she was like, none. I don't do any. And the guy was like, really? And she said, yeah, no, I don't do any marketing. But then she did say to me, I mean, I do, I guess, in terms of I call my people and I do,
Yeah.
she does events and things where she'll invite them to, but she's like, I don't spend money on marketing. And she's like, this is the way to do it. So anyway, I just thought that was interesting that I'd share
That
with you.
is
All right, so let's jump into this. So here's the idea of within this class. So I'm going to give to you guys four protocols. So we're going to talk today about four protocols. And for me, a protocol, the reason I use the word protocol instead of rules or laws or something like that is a protocol is a required condition. So you have to do it. And the thing that I will tell you, and especially from talking to Tonya yesterday, is it is guaranteed to work if you'll follow the process. She still is doing it. And I first met her and started training with her in probably like 2004. So we're coming up on 20 years that and that's all she still does. So this process is all that she still does. So keep in mind that as we go through and talk about this, that it is a process, and that as you go through it, it is guaranteed to work. Of everything I teach, this is the one thing that I will tell you is guaranteed to work because it's a math problem. Now, the thing to keep in mind though is it's going to look something like this, okay? And I didn't actually draw that very well, so let me erase and start over. But the process is going to look something like this, to where this is the learning curve. And what's going to happen then is it's going to work something like that. Now, what I will tell you is that my experience with this is typically it's going to take you somewhere around 6 to 9 months for you to see this piece of it, right here for that where that's going to take off. It's typically a 6 to 9 month period. But oh, we got a couple more that have joined. So Lisa, Brian, hey, just so you guys know, there's nobody in the room. It's only on Zoom. So anyway, so you guys have to participate. I mean, I guess you don't have to, but there's nobody in the room to ask me questions. So if you have a question, stop and let's talk about it. So this process that I'm going to give to you guys, I'm going to give you four protocols that if you will use in working your sphere of influence, what will happen is you're going to find that it gives you a lot more success in working with those people. And so we're going to go through those 4. But before we do that, I first just want to make sure that you understand that as I teach this, that when I'm teaching it, that people tend to leave this class being excited about it. They'll be excited of like, hey, I can see that would work. Like it totally makes sense. But unfortunately, because the process is going to look like this, meaning the first few months, you're going to be doing the work and it's going to feel like maybe nothing's happening. Now, that's not totally true for all of you guys, but to some extent, it may feel like nothing's happening. Well, what's going to happen then is you're going to hit a point out here, 6 to 9 months out, where all of a sudden you're going to see a dramatic increase in the amount of referrals that you're getting from your sphere of influence by doing this. And so just, I always want to start this class with that, of keep that piece in mind, is that is what's going to happen. Now, so what I talked about is I'm going to give you guys these 4 protocols. And so we're going to start with protocol number 1. Now, so the first thing that I want to share with you guys is the way that most agents work their sphere of influence is they tend to work their sphere of influence from the standpoint of an open system. So we're going to talk about, with protocol number 1 here, we're going to talk about 2 types of systems. There's open systems and then there are closed systems. The way that most agents approach working a sphere of influence is they approach it from the standpoint of working it as a open system. So, and I'll explain what that means in just one second. But I have been down to real estate seminars and I've been to a number of different trainers in real estate. And what I have found when I go to these different trainers is typically one of the common themes that I've found is they will have a panel of people up on a stage where they will ask them a question about how many people do you have in your sphere of influence? And then you'll hear this range of numbers. And typically, now keep in mind, what we're talking about is the difference between an open system and a closed system. Typically, the way agents will respond is they will talk about it in terms of an open system. And you'll hear agents say, I've got 3,000 people, or I've got 4,000 people, or I've got however many, like they've got this huge number. And then the common theme that I have typically heard is that you should be able to get a 10 to 15% return off of your sphere of influence. Well, now you guys tell me, somebody unmute and answer, since I have nobody in the room with me to answer. But if you had 4,000 people in a database and you should get a 10% return every year off of that, how many transactions should those agents be doing every year?
400.
Yeah, 400. So if you had 4,000 people, you should be doing 400 transactions a year. And my experience is that's not usually the case. Now, these are top producing agents that are making really good money. So I don't want to take away from that. But I do want to say, like, the idea of a 10 to 15% return typically is probably not what most of them are getting. And the reason they're not getting that is because they're working as an open system. And so we're going to talk about these 2 different types of systems. But to help you understand the difference between an open and a closed system. Now, sometimes what I will do is I'll use a dice. Now, since there's nobody in the room and the way the camera's set up, you wouldn't even be able to see it anyway, so I'll just explain it. A lot of times what I'll use is a dice. And if I had a die here and I was going to roll it, and I had one of you guys pick a number between 1 and 6, and let's just say, for example, you said 3. So if I was going to roll the dice, this die, and I had 1 dice and I'm going to roll it and I'm going to try to get a 3. What are the odds that I'm going to get a 3 when I roll that dice?
1 in 6.
Okay, good. So I guess that they've designated you, Michael, to be the designated answerer, I guess, huh? So, okay.
I wouldn't be able to guess.
You wouldn't guess?
Well, I don't I wouldn't know the odds on that.
Okay, well, if there's on a dice, there's 6 sides to it. So if
Okay.
the odds of rolling a 3 is 1 out of 6. So the odds are 1/6, out of every 6 times I roll it, you would think it should come up one time because there's 6 sides to it. Okay, so that's an open system. Now, so if I were to roll the dice 6 times, am I going to get a 3? Am I going to get a 1 once, a 2 once, a 3 once, a 4 once, a 5 once, and a 6 once?
No,
No. Now, why?
that's just not the way it happens.
Correct.
Too
Because
random.
yeah, it's going to be random based on it's a 6-sided dice, so the odds are 1 out of 6. So the problem though with an open system is the way that you and I think, the way our brain works is we hear 1 out of 6 to mean it's going to happen once every 6 times, when in reality, that is not what it is. Now, in fact, if I rolled the dice and I got a 4, so I didn't get a 3, and now I pick it up again and I'm going to roll it, what are the odds now that I'm going to get? So I just rolled it one time and I got a 4. What are the odds the next time I roll it that I'm going to get a 3?
Probably the same.
Yeah, correct. That's the problem with an open system. Now remember, the reason we're talking about this is most agents approach working their sphere of influence through it as an open system. In an open system, the odds don't change. So let me explain one other thing. So let me show you what I mean by that. If I just had a map and I drew a circle on the map. So if I just had a map, I drew a circle on the map, and it would have to be a pretty large circle, meaning probably like a significant amount of Salt Lake County on this map. What would be the odds of somebody moving within that circle? Any ideas?
No, don't know.
Okay, well, I will tell you, according to the Census Bureau, that people will move 12% every year. So 12% of the population is going to move every year. Now that's including renters. So I'm not saying just people that are going to buy or sell, but people change addresses 12%. So 12% of the people will move every year. Now, when I first got my real estate license, my manager told me this. He said, for every 100 people you talk to, you should get 10 leads, and from those 10 leads should turn into one transaction. Now, again, remember, what we're talking about here is an open system. In an open system, this is what that would look like. Now, if you took the renters out of the people who move, it ends up being basically 7%. 7% of the population is going to be moving. So where that came from, this idea that my manager gave me of if you go knock on 100 doors, if you talk to 100 people, so you go out and knock on doors, talk to 100 people, you should get 10 leads and that should turn into one transaction. Well, where that comes from is this idea that 7% of the population is going to be moving. Now, ultimately what that means, if 7% of 100 is moving, that would equate to 14 transactions. So the reason it's 14 instead of 7 is because there's a buy side and a sell side, right? So there's 14 transactions. So in essence, what my manager was saying is if you go knock on 100 doors, 14 possibilities of transactions should come, I said knock on 100 doors, talk to 100 people, 14 of those people will probably do something real estate related. Well, now here's the idea of this. In an open system, that sounds good. Just the same as if I had a dice and I said, I'm going to roll it, and the odds of getting a 3 are 1 in 6. Well, that doesn't sound too bad. But I have had times where in the class where I would roll the dice, and I rolled it once like 20 times and still didn't get a 3. See, the odds don't change based on the number of times you roll the dice. The odds don't change. So same thing with this. So this idea of if you talk to 100 people, you should get 10 leads and it should turn into one transaction. Sounds good. Here's the problem with it. What it What we don't understand though is the odds of that, because really another way of saying this is if you go knock on someone's door, which this is going to sound negative for a minute, but I also just want you to know the truth. I feel like I believe power comes out of telling the truth. So 1 out of 10, or the odds are 9 to 1. Well, said another way, if you go and knock on somebody's door, the odds are 9 to 1 against you. They're 9 times more likely to say no than they are to say yes. Now, remember, I'm not saying don't go door knocking. I'm just wanting you to understand the difference in an open system and a closed system. See, when we work in an open system, which even the way most people work their sphere of influence is an open system. So when we're working our open system, our SOI as an open system, it's going to play out somewhat like this. Now, not exactly, but because the people know you, so it's a little better. But just to get the point across, from knocking on doors, there is a 9 times better chance every door you knock on that they're going to tell you no than that they're going to tell you yes. And based on what we just talked about, doesn't matter how many doors you knock on, the odds don't change. Now, can you influence the odds by going and doing expireds or a for sale by owner? Absolutely. Like, I don't want to take away from that, but just follow me on this idea of in an open system, the odds don't change based on the number of times you do it. So even though my manager told me as a new agent, talk to 100 people, you'll get 10 leads, it'll turn into a transaction, it didn't necessarily play out that way, because I then started knocking on 250 doors, or excuse me, talking to 250 people. So I would knock on doors until I got 25 contacts every day. Then I would go back to the office, get on the phone until I got 25 contacts. So 50 a day times 5, I was doing 250 contacts a week. Well, using his math, I should have gotten 25 leads a week and done 2.5 transactions a week, or multiply that by 50 weeks in a year. I should have been doing over 100 transactions, and it wasn't happening. That was not what happened. Now, the reason is because I was working in an open system. So just because you knock on 100 doors, talk to 100 people, the odds are still this way in an open system. And agents who have 4,000 people in a database that are working it as an open system, and the odds don't get better based on the number of times you do it. So the first protocol that I want to give to you guys in working your sphere of influence is it should be fixed in size. Okay, so that's protocol number 1, which saying fixed in size is another way of me saying a closed system. So it has to be a closed system. See, in an open system, the odds don't get better, but in a closed system, they do. So let me quickly share that with you. So again, if I had people in the room with me, if you guys weren't all on Zoom, and I would take my dice and I would roll it, but this time I would have stickers that I'm going to put on the dice, so that every time I roll a number that's not a 3, I would put a sticker on that number. And then if I rolled it and the sticker showed up again, then that sticker doesn't count. Like, I get a free throw. So the rules of the game would be I get either the 3, I roll it and get the sticker, which means I get a free throw, or I get a different number that's not the 3 or that had the sticker, in which case I would then put a sticker on it and then roll it again. So what would happen is every time I rolled it, I would either be getting a free throw, getting the number, or I would add a sticker to it. Well, eventually I'm going to have a sticker on every side except for the 3, which means that when I roll it, I either get a free throw or I get the number. A free throw, get the number. Free throw or the number. See, eventually it gets better. That's the idea of a closed system. In a closed system, your sphere of influence should become more and more powerful for you the more times that you work it. The longer you work it, the more powerful it should become for you if you're following protocol number 1, which is it has to be fixed in size. Now, typically, the number that I will use with people when I tell them this, for most agents, so make sure you hear what I'm saying. Most agents, that number that I say they should have in a sphere of influence is 200. Now, In the event you want to have more than that, you can. Just keep in mind, whatever the number is, it has to stay fixed in size. And you also have to follow these other 3 protocols that I'm going to give to you on this, is you got to follow those. So as I give you these other protocols, 2, 3, and 4, what you want to do as we go through and we talk about those is that may influence what number you want to use as your fixed in size number. Now, with that though, with that fixed in size number, what's going to happen is because it's fixed in size, that's what changes it to being this closed system. And as a closed system, the more you work it, the more likely it is to then, or the better it's going to get. So remember, I started this by saying, keep in mind the first few months that you do this, it's going to feel like I'm doing all this work and not getting any return for it. But eventually, all of a sudden, it's going to shoot up and you're going to see a huge payoff from it. Now, again, I want to just remind you that this is something that is guaranteed to work. It works because it's a system that if you follow it, it will work. I think of it as a math problem. It's going to work like a math problem, just like 2 + 2 is always going to be 4. In this scenario, if you'll follow the math on this, and I'm going to show it to you and how it works and why it works, and then you'll see that it's guaranteed to work. So protocol number 1 is it's got to be fixed in size, and my recommendation to start off with is 200 is your number, but what matters is that it's fixed in size. Now, the reason I say that is most agents, you'll see as we go through this, if it gets much bigger than 200, just won't do it. They just won't do the work. And if you're not going to do the work, then it quits working and it becomes an open system. And then all of a sudden now you're back to whatever. Now, here's the other thing I will tell you. So I mentioned that most trainers will tell you should get a 10 to 15% return from your sphere of influence. I'm going to actually tell you that you should get a 60% return from your sphere of influence. And the reason is because you're going to have it be fixed in size. And so I'll show you what that looks like here in just a minute. But let's go on to protocol number 2 then first, actually. So protocol number 2. So we want it first to be fixed in size. Second protocol is all of the people that are in your sphere of influence, you need to have permission from them. Okay, so you need to get permission from them to stay in touch with them about real estate. So what you want to do with this is you want to go through and call all the people that you have in your phone or in whatever database you're using, and you want to call through and ask them for permission to stay in touch with them about real estate. So I'll give you the 2 different ways I would recommend that you do it. So the first way is just calling the people that you know. And if you have not called and gotten permission from them, call and get permission from them. And this is how I would handle it. So you call, get them on the phone, and you're going to say, hey, this is Russ. I have decided, and especially this time of year, you might say to them, hey, I've decided starting in 2024 or just starting this month, however you want to say it, I want my real estate business to be primarily referral dependent. So I'm putting together a select group of people. Now you want to make sure you say it as select group of people so that it feels special to them, okay? I'm putting together a select group of people that I'm going to stay in touch with about real estate. What that would mean is that I'm going to send you an email once a month with information about what's going on in the real estate market in your area. And then what you want to do then, and I'll say more about this in a second, is get some type of a mailing that's going to be sent or an email that's sent out to them once a month. My recommendation is to go on to Moxie Engage, get the people set up on neighborhood news in Moxie Engage. That's what I would recommend to do, okay? Now, so you're going to call and just say, hey, I'd like to stay in touch with you about real estate. Now, I recommend, depending on the person, but you want to stay in touch with those people about real estate minimum once a quarter. Some of the people you're going to want to call once a month. So let me give you an example of from this. So my best friend growing up, he bought a townhouse, or there was a neighborhood being built of townhouses out in West Valley, and him and his wife went and bought one of those to move into, and his wife cut hair, and so I went and had her cut my hair. Well, what ended up happening was she ended up cutting hair for most of the people in that townhouse complex, and every time I seemed to go and get my hair cut, because I had done this with them, I had them in what, again, I always called this in my jelly bean jar. I had them in my jelly bean jar, so I always called my SOI as the jelly bean jar. So I had them in my jelly bean jar that I was going to stay in touch with them. I had asked for permission to stay in touch about real estate. Well, I would go get my hair cut, and Terry was her name. Terry would cut my hair. And after a few years of them being there, I started to notice that when I would go get my hair cut, Terry would tell me about all these people that lived in these townhouses that would come to her to get their hair cut, and that they were finishing college, getting better jobs, moving on to other places. And before long, it seemed like every time I went and got my hair cut from Terry, she would tell me, hey, you're going to need to talk to this person because her husband got a new job and they're going to be moving, and you need to call this person, because like it seemed like every time I went and got my hair cut, she was telling me about somebody who was either ready to list or that, hey, in the next few months, they're going to need to list. She was a great person to have in this select group of people, until the day that my best friend got transferred and had to move to Idaho, and then I lost out on that connection that I had with them. But you have to ask for permission. So call the people you already know and just say, hey, I'm putting together a select group of people that I'm going to stay in touch with about real estate. I'd like to add you to that list. What it means is I would send you an email once a month, and then I'll just touch base with you periodically. And again, that periodically is going to be some of them once a month. Like somebody who is really good at giving you referrals and is interested in the market, you're going to probably call once a month. Some of the other people you're going to call at least once a quarter, though, to just say, hey, do you have any questions? Is there anything I can help you with about real estate? So that's the first group of how you're going to get this group to 200. Which again, remember, I'm going to keep emphasizing what matters most is fixed in size. I don't care the number, whatever number you can handle based on what we talk about. But so keep in mind, go ahead.
I have a question. So you're saying fixed in size, and if you call and ask permission and they say no, thank you, in the nice, friendly way, whatever. But you know darn well that everybody changes their mind. We don't want to move this month, but maybe 2 months from now, we saw a house that, hey, now things have changed, but I've already deleted them from my database.
That's right.
Okay. So yeah, great question. So here's the thing though with it is typically I would rather you find out from them no. Now, meaning if they're telling you no, why are they telling you no? I guess is what I'm more curious.
I guess you have to really find that and ask that question.
Well, because here's the thing. Typically, if they're going to tell you no, what I've found the reason is because they already have somebody else that they would use. So I'll give you an example. I had a guy that I called that lives up the street from me, and I said, hey, his name's Jay. I said, Jay, I'm putting together a select group of people. I'm going to stay in touch with them about real estate, want to add you to that list. Jay said to me, well, first off, I'm not planning on moving. And it's been 20 years or close, and he still hasn't moved. So he wasn't lying. He then said, but if I was, I actually wouldn't feel comfortable using you as an agent just because of our friendship. And I said, okay, I'm fine with that, but would you let me refer you to somebody? And he said, well, yeah, I'd be okay with that. But he just says, I just worry about like mixing friendship and business. And I've just had scenarios where it's gone bad. But yeah, if you wanted to refer me, that'd be fine. And then I said, well, would you, if you hear of a family member or a friend, a work colleague, anybody like that was thinking of moving, would you be willing to refer them to me? And he said, yes, I would do that. And he did. So here's the idea. The idea is you want to find out from people, because I don't know about you guys, but I'm sure it's happened to you. I have had people in my neighborhood. I'll give you even an example of it. I had a guy that I coached baseball. My oldest son, he's now 20, almost 28. When he was probably 6, 7-ish years old, I started coaching baseball with another guy that lives in my neighborhood. And he and I coached baseball, our two sons, we coached together. We got, team in the local club, whatever. And we did a lot of baseball together. We talked a lot. All of a sudden, one day, there was a for sale sign in his front yard. And I was like, Tracy. I called him up. His name, interesting. His name was Tracy and his wife's name was Tracy. So Tracy and Tracy. And the way I always kept track of them, I've never told them this, but it was Trace he and Trace she. If my wife and I were talking, is how we would distinguish which Tracy we were talking about. I called him up and I said, Tracy, I noticed a for sale sign in your yard. What's going on? And he said, oh yeah, I got a job transfer. We're moving to Texas. And I said, well, how did you end up with this particular agent, which was an agent with the company that I was with? I was with Coldwell Banker at the time. And I said, how did you end up with that particular agent? And Tracy said to me, oh, well, it's because through my work that they're transferring me. And so I had to go through their relocation department. And I said, well, their relocation department is part of our company, which, so for you guys too to know, is somebody getting transferred, it's highly likely that our relocation department here at Century 21 would be part of that network. So, and even if they're not, most relocations, the consumer, the seller, can choose the agent they want, even if they're not with that company. But I said, well, you realize I'm with, at that time, Coldwell Banker, and I said, that agent is in the office that I'm in. Like, I could have done it. And he's, oh, well, I didn't know. If I'd have known, I would have had him use you. So again, part of why you want to make sure you're calling is you want to find out, are they going to use you or not? Because I 100% guarantee you, if I would have been doing this system at that time with him, he would have used me to sell his house, guaranteed. Here's the worst part about it. So the agent who listed it, after that conversation, the next week, does an open house. Okay, fine, whatever. She does an open house. The next week, the home, I live in a cul-de-sac. The home 2 down from me in the cul-de-sac gets a for sale sign, Coldwell Banker, the same agent's name's on the sign. I go down and knock on the door. Hey guys, what's going on? I noticed for sale sign. Yeah, we're moving to my work transferred me. I got to move. Oh, well, how did you end up with this particular agent? Oh, she held an open house and we just went over to it the other day and just saw it because we found out we were moving. Like, part of what I'm saying to you is you guys have deals that are falling through the cracks. I promise you, if you're not staying in touch and letting people know. So part of what this permission is, you want to call and let people know, I want your business. So like since that time in my neighborhood that I live in, I don't think any other agent, like other agents have listed houses, but no other agent has listed more houses in the neighborhood that I live in than me since that time. And it is because I was like, I am going to make sure that the people who live in my neighborhood know, and I'm going to go and ask for permission to stay in touch with them about real estate. And so for a lot of years, that's what I did. Now, I'm not currently following this system because I'm managing now, but while I was selling, this is the process that I followed, guys, is to do this. And I would go get permission. I went and got permission. Inside the neighborhood I live in, there are probably at least 20 other real estate agents. And it's probably more than that. Like there are a ton that live in my neighborhood, but none of the rest of them go out and talk to the people. So part of what you got to remember is that your sphere of influence, your neighbors, your friends, your family, if you haven't talked to them, they assume that you get business some other way and you don't need their help because you never asked for it. So you got to go get permission. You will have, though, Carla, you're going to have people that say, no, I don't want to. And then you're going to see a for sale sign pop up in their yard. But I'll tell you what, it hurts a lot less to see somebody else's sign pop up in your neighborhood after you've already been told by them, well, hey, no, I actually don't want you to stay in touch with me. Like, I'm less hurt that way when that happens. Now, is it possible the others? Yes. But the risk you run is if you turn this into an open system, you're not going to see a 60% return on your time spent on it. Okay, so permission. Second way you're going to get permission. In any of your prospecting that you do, just when you're out knocking on doors, you're calling on the phone, I don't care, whatever it is, you have two primary objectives. You have a primary and a secondary. Your primary objective when you're prospecting is what? And everybody should give me a resounding same answer. What's your primary objective of prospecting?
Set an appointment.
Good. Set an appointment. But if you can't, if they don't set an appointment with you after you've asked 3, 4, 5 times, they say no, no, no. Your secondary objective is, I have a select group of people that I stay in touch with about real estate. I'd like to add you to that list. Would that be okay? So in just your prospecting. Now, again, let me make sure that you understand. Keeping in mind, protocol number 1 is your jelly bean jar, your SOI has to stay fixed in size. The fact that it's fixed in size means, and if it's 200, it's 200. But as you're out prospecting and somebody says, yes, you can stay in touch with them, you got to now make the decision of, is this, and maybe you make this decision before you even ask if you can stay in touch, meaning before you ask for permission. But you're going to basically evaluate, of the people I have in here, and let's just go with 200, but could be 300, 4 or 5. Of those few hundred people, is this person better than any of them? If there's one that is worse than them, you want to add them to this database. Now, based on what we said, if it has to be fixed in size, if I was out prospecting and I meet somebody, and let's say that I have 200 people, and I meet somebody and I'm like, that they say to me, yeah, we've thought about it. We might do it in the next year, maybe 2, I don't know, somewhere in that 1 or 2 years, we'll probably downsize. Okay, well, I don't know about you guys, but I would like to have that deal 1 year or 2 years from now. I'm okay with that. So I'm going to now say, do I have, of these 200 people, is there at least one of them that probably isn't going to sell or buy in that time frame? And if the answer is yes, I want to add this person. So I'm going to then say, I have a select group of people that I stay in touch with, keep them updated on real estate. I'd like to add you to that list. Would that be okay? Yes, great. What that means is I'm going to send you an email once a month. I'm going to talk to you periodically to see if you have any questions. So what email address and what phone number could I call you on? I'm going to get their information and I'm going to plug them into this. But now that just means now I all of a sudden have 201. So what do I got to do? Bueller?
Get rid of somebody that isn't moving.
Okay, good. So now, because protocol number 1 is it has to stay at 200, I got to now get rid of somebody so that I'm back at 200 again. But you're going to continue to get rid of the people that are worse than who you just added. Now imagine
What
that.
you're doing is upgrading your SOI.
Correct. So what you're doing is you're just saying, like, I'm constantly going to take a set number of people and continue to get rid of the ones who aren't referring to me and or that I don't want to call, which I'll get to that in a minute. But I'm going to just continually get rid of the people that aren't working by adding more. Now, so I told you the story about my friend Terry, my best friend's wife, Terry, that cut my hair. Imagine if you had 200 people like that. What if you had 200 people that were like on the lookout for people that you could help buy and sell real estate? Imagine if you had an army of 200 people that were that way. Well, see, that's why this thing is, at first, it might feel like it's not doing anything. But over time, you're going to continue to be adding people and dropping people, adding people, dropping, adding, dropping. And you're continually, as Lisa said, upgrading it, getting people that are better and better and better, better referring people, people you want to talk to, people that will refer business to you. And you can imagine if you had an army of 200 people you had out working for you every single day, trying to find people to help you buy or sell real estate. So now let me come back to, I started this by telling you the story about Tonya Messina and how I ran into her yesterday She has been following this system. And now I didn't look up her production. I'm going to do that. I just realized I didn't do it. I'm going to look up her production, but I will tell you, she does a lot of real estate and makes a good living doing nothing but this. Like, she's like, I don't work. Like, I help people buy and sell. And she's like, and I call people that I like to call just to see, hey, how's it going? And do you need anything real estate? But that's what real estate looks like for her because she follows this process. She has created a group of people that she stays in touch with. Okay. Now, all right. So permission was number 2. So number 3, which I've already told you, hinted at.
Brad?
So, yes.
Just to comment, working on the website this morning, I've talked to way too many people that have already bought. Now, I don't know that they didn't buy from one of us or used one of us, but it's like every time I talk to somebody like that, it's like, how did they get away from me? How did
Yep.
that happen?
Somebody didn't call. You're exactly right.
Yeah.
That's my point of deals are falling through the cracks. So, okay, number 3. So number 3 protocol is you have to have personal contact with them. And again, like I said, some of the people are going to be monthly, but I would just say minimum 1 time per quarter. Okay? So once a quarter, you have to have personal contact, whether it's face-to-face, because you run into them at church, the grocery store, the gym, a movie, like I don't really care, wherever. Personal contact with them once a month. Now, on that, my recommendation is, here's my recommendation for this. With these people that are in your sphere of influence, the people you see at church, the gym, any clubs that you're a part of, whatever. Don't be the person who every time you see them says, hey, do you know anybody I could help in real estate? Like, don't do that. Instead, 1 time per month or a quarter, minimum quarter, but could be once a month that you do this, you can ask them. Outside of that, you don't bring up real estate unless they bring it up. If they bring up real estate, you're great to talk to them as much as you want about real estate. But if you can only bring it up once a month is the most you could do it. Could do once a quarter if you feel like that's a better number. That's fine. Somewhere between once a month and once a quarter. But in addition to that, as part of protocol number 3, is you have to send them an email or a mail. I don't care which, and it could be a combination, 1 time per month. Okay. So once a month. Now, again, my recommendation on this is put them into Moxie Engage and set them up on neighborhood news. Now, if you have a different system you're using that has something like that, that's totally fine. But send to them once a month properties that are for sale, under contract, and sold in their area or an area they're interested in. So either want to do it for the neighborhood they live in, or if they've told you, hey, we're interested in potentially down the road moving to this other neighborhood, set them up for that neighborhood or both. You could set them up for both to receive this. Now, the idea of this is it's then going to send this email to them once a month of, hey, here's what's going on in that area. People like that. Like, since we started using the Moxie Engage system, I've set a bunch of people up on this. Typically during a class, I'll set them up on Moxie Engage. I've had 1 person unsubscribe from it. That 1 person that unsubscribed actually was just this week. The first time I've had somebody unsubscribe was just this week. And it was my aunt who lived up the street from me, across the street from Jay that I talked about earlier, actually. But it was my aunt, and it was because I just helped them sell their house. So she lived up the street. We just closed on it a couple weeks ago. And so I'm thinking the reason she unsubscribed is she's like, I don't live there anymore. So I don't really care about that neighborhood. So now if she moved into a retirement place, so they're now renting, if they were going to be moving and I knew where, I'd go get her set up on, hey, let's get you set back up for a different area that you're interested in. So just know, setting them up on that Moxie Engage and then putting them on neighborhood news is going to be information they're interested in. Okay, so protocol number 3 is personal contact once a month. or up to once a quarter, somewhere between once a month, once a quarter. You decide on each person, but no, if you're calling them less than once a quarter, I'm going to ask you to look back up to this and go, okay, should they really be in this fixed group? If you're not willing to call them, find somebody that you are and replace them. Okay. So again, you decide the number, but fixed in size, got to have permission. And then protocol number 3 is that you're going to have contact with them at least once a quarter, some of the people once a month, and mail or email once a month as well. Now, the other thing that it's not one of the protocols, but I would recommend doing is some type of what I call a hub event. Invite them to, like we just did the pumpkin patch. In the spring, we do the Easter egg. Inviting people to one of those as well is good for this as well. All right, protocol number 4. So now, before I get into protocol number 4, I'm going to actually I want to show you what this looks like and why this works. So I want to make sure you see the math on this of why this works and why the open system is a struggle for people. So hopefully you guys can see this well enough. But let's just say that I had, in fact, I'm going to do two different colors. Now, remember I said that a lot of times I refer to this as a jelly bean jar. The reason I refer to it as a jelly bean jar, the idea, the concept of this came out of actually not from me, but the guy that trained me on it. This came out from him. His daughter had in her bedroom this jelly bean jar, and he noticed that when he would walk into her bedroom, that pretty soon that jelly bean jar was full of like one color of jelly beans. And he asked her, why are there so many of, let's just say red, I don't know what color it was, but how come there's so many, well, let's use green. How come there's so many green jelly beans in there? And she said, oh, well, because I don't like the taste of those ones. So what I do is I go through and pull out the ones that I like, and I just leave the ones I don't like in there. For me, I have that same concept at my house. We have, in the kitchen, we have this little candy jar, and it gets full of candy that nobody likes to eat because my wife will put candy in there and we pick out the ones we like and we leave the ones we don't like. So what I'm going to show you now is the opposite of that, meaning you want to leave the ones in your jelly bean jar that you like and get rid of the ones that you don't like. Okay, so it's just the opposite, but that's where this concept came from. So just for the sake of showing you this open and closed system, let's say, remember protocol number 1 is it has to be fixed in size. Let's say that I have 100 people in my jelly bean jar or this SOI. So I've got 100 people there that are in there. So that's going to be my fixed in size number. Now let's say that 50 of them are green using what we did before, and 50 are red. Now, here's the truth. Well, first, let me say, so 50% of my jar is green, 50% of it is red. But let's say that green is people who are going to either do business with you or refer business to you. Red is people who are not going to. Now, you might ask the question, well, why would you have 50 people in there if they're not going to refer people to you? And the answer is people lie. Now, usually at this point, I will do something with people in the room, which I'm not going to do since there's nobody in the room and you guys are all on Zoom. But usually I will do a demonstration to prove to you how easy it is to get people to lie to you and how hard it is to get people to tell the truth. So the reason you are going to have some red in your group of people is because you are going to have a group of people in this sphere of influence that give you permission. They gave you permission to stay in touch with them, but they have zero plans of ever using you. And so what's going to happen then is really over time, you're going to figure out they're red. So to begin with, though, they might not tell you. Now, the reason they're going to tell you yes is to get you off the phone, or they don't want to hurt your feelings. Maybe it's a friend or a family member. They don't want to hurt your feelings that, hey, if we did list, it would be with somebody else, but we don't want to tell you that because we don't want to hurt your feelings. So they just say, yeah, you can stay in touch with me for real estate. And then over time, they never give you a referral. Or, like I said, over time, they end up going and buying with somebody else or listing with somebody else. Now, the good news is if you'll follow these protocols, that shouldn't happen, and I'll show you why. So let's say though that I got 100 people, 50 are green or 50 are red. Let's say I go door knocking or do an open house or whatever. It doesn't matter. I go prospect. And at the end of my prospecting, let's just say after a month, let's use maybe a month as our time frame, I've picked up 10 new people because I've done this permission. Every time I couldn't set an appointment and I felt like this could be somebody I wanted to stay in touch with, I said to them, I have a select group of people that I stay in touch with about real estate. I'd like to add you to that list. Would that be okay? Yes, great. So I add 10. Now, when I add them, I think they're all green. My assumption is they're all green. But over time, I'm going to find out that a percentage of them are not green. Now, unfortunately, you don't know who that is until time goes on. But we're going to pretend for a minute we have a crystal ball and I could see. So after I've added them, we're going to pretend I had a crystal ball and I could now see who they were. So let's say that I added 8 that end up being red. Remember, reds, they're not going to do anything with me. But 2 of them ended up being green. Now, I wish I could know who it was because I would have only added those 2. But I didn't know, so I had to add all 10. Turns out if we could fast forward in time, we would find out 8 of them ended up being red and 2 of them ended up being green. Now, let me show you the problem with an open system. So in essence now, I have 110 people in this group that I'm staying in touch with, right? I have 110. But to begin with, I had 100 and 50-50 was my numbers. Now, what just happened though, because I added 110 and I'm at 58 that are red, so unless one of you guys wants to beat me to this on the calculator, what percentage, so out of 110 people, 58 are, so that just means now, we just went to, it's 52.7, so I'm going to just say 53. So now we have 53% are red, which means 47% are green. So now let me show you what just happened, because this is the problem in an open system. This is the problem. I had 100 people. Remember, I gotta stay in touch with these people and send emails to them. Not that big of a deal to send emails, but the staying in touch part, my workload just increased by 10%. So this is the problem in an open system. The more people you add to your database, the more red you put in there, is really what the short answer is. But look, my workload increased by 10% to get 3% less. So I got 3% less green, even though the number's bigger, my percentage has gone down and my workload has gone up. So now, because thankfully I came to this class, I know I gotta be fixed in size. So now what do I gotta do? How do I fix this mess I've just created?
Get rid of some red.
Okay, good. So I got to get rid of 10 people, and what Carl
Balance out the percentage. Balance out the percentage to be more green.
Good. So what Carla said is right on. So I got to get rid of 10 people now because I got to get it back to 100. So which 10 should I get rid of? Well, I want to get rid of the worst 10. So I'm going to get rid of 10 red, which means now I'm at 48 red, 52 green, which means I'm back to 100 people. But now look at what happened to my percentages. I'm now at 52% green, 48% red. Okay, so now let's just do this one more time just to make sure I drive the point home. Let's say this time though, let's say we do the reverse. We get 10 new leads, 8 of them for whatever reason are going to end up being green. 2 of them end up being red. So now I'm back to 110, but I can't have 110, so I got to get rid of 10 more red. So I subtract 10. Now I'm at 40 red, 60 green. I'm back to 100 here, but look at what just happened. My percentage now is 40% here, 60% green. Imagine what would happen if every month I could just get better. And really, it's just a matter of I just keep adding people to the group, but keep getting rid of the ones who aren't responding, aren't giving me leads, aren't doing anything that way. What's going to happen? I just noticed there's some comments over here. I can't see comments, so let me see what you guys got in the chat box. Oh, cool. Okay, thanks, Megan. All right. What's going to happen, though, guys? What's going to happen if I just keep adding people in and getting rid of the red?
I'm going to get to all green.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I'll tell you, that's probably never going to happen that you're going to get to all green, but you could get close. Now, let me just run through watch this. Let's say that 1 month I mess up and I add all red. I add 10 people, turns out they're all red. But I have to get rid of 10 red. Look what just happened. Nothing changed. Even if I messed up and put 10 red in and got rid of 10, I'm no worse off because I keep getting rid of them. So protocol number 4 is this. Look for the red. So now this piece is counterintuitive. So this is counterintuitive to what you would think. Typically, if I asked you, what are you calling the people in your database for? Typically what will happen is people will say, I'm calling to find out and to set an appointment. Actually, that's not what you want to do. If you said I'm calling to set an appointment, what you said is I'm calling to find the green. That's not what you're doing. The purpose of this phone call once a quarter minimum, once a month for some of them, is to figure out, are they green or are they red? And you're looking for red. You're trying to find the red. And remember, people lie to you. People are going to tell you, yes, I would use you, and they won't. People will tell you, yes, I'll refer people to you, and they won't. But over time, you're going to figure that out because some of these people, you're going to be contacting them, and after a year, they've never given you a lead. And when they've never given you a lead or they've never used you, you're going to start to go, maybe I don't want to keep calling this person. Maybe that person who gave me a referral recently is better than them. So I'm going to get rid of the one that's not. See, over time, if you'll just keep doing this, you're going to just increase the percentage of people giving you referrals. So in essence, all you're doing is sorting through and figuring out who are the people that are great at giving referrals. And I want to add a whole bunch more of those people and get rid of quit spending my time on the ones that aren't. Now, here's the good
I
news.
didn't realize I got rants.
You're unmuted, Michael, just so you know.
Oh, sorry.
You're good. Because we didn't realize you got ranch either. But
I got ranch. So if y'all want ranch, I'll bring it next time.
all right. So anyway.
I heard everything.
Did you? All right. So that's the idea of what we're trying to do is we're trying to just get this to be a powerhouse group of people that are green that are going to be referring people to us. Now, so how do you know who the red are? It's actually pretty easy because here's the way you're going to know. So when you sit down to call your database, if you look at somebody's name and you go, ooh, maybe I'll wait till tomorrow to call them, or for whatever reason, you're just like, I don't want to call them, they're probably red. That's your first sign that you should probably get rid of them out of the database. If you are not excited to call them, get rid of them. Replace them with somebody else that you are excited to call. So that's the first way. Second way you're going to know who is red is you're going to potentially have somebody tell you, don't call me anymore. So if somebody says, don't call me anymore, they're red. Get rid of them. They unsubscribe. They're red. Get rid of them. You drive by their house, there's a for sale sign out front. They're red. And if there's a for sale sign and it's not yours, they're red. Get rid of them. Like, that's what you want to be doing, is you want to be constantly figuring out who are the people who are going to use you and refer to you and who's not, and get rid of the ones that are not and replace them with somebody else. That's where the magic of this fixed in size comes into place. So, all right. Imagine now real quick, let's just finish it up with this. hopefully you guys can see clear over here. Let's say though that I have 200 people. Now, like I said, you want to grow it to where you can get to 60% green. You want to get to where you feel like I've got 60% of the people in there are going to probably refer to me once a year. If you could get them to refer once a year, somebody to you, and you had 60% green, that would be so 60% of 200 would be 120 referrals that people would give to you. And now again, imagine, now I'm not saying this is going to happen immediately, but over time you can fine tune it to be this, to where out of 200 people, 60% of them are going to give me a lead of somebody who's thinking about buying or selling. So now I just am going to get 120 leads. Well, after that, let's say that from that 120, half of the people would meet with you or that are willing to at least pursue something. Well, that's going to be 60. And then let's say that half of those end up doing a transaction with you. Times that by, even if we just said that it was $10,000 as our commission, that's going to equate to $300,000 from off of this. And that, again, that's if you got 120 leads and half of them didn't work out and half of the ones that you did meet with didn't work out. The truth is, you're probably going to be more, if you had 60 that you met with, you probably are going to be ending up working with more like 45-ish or more, maybe even 50 of those, and then do that math. So here's what I'll tell you. If you'll follow this process, it will work. Now, I just did this based on 200. So let's say that you said, I'm going to have 400 in there, and we did this exact same thing. So 400 and 240 would be 60% of that. Half of that's 120, and that would be 60 transactions a year. I think most of you would be okay with 60 transactions a year. So, all right, what questions?
Would you just go over your permission script one more time, please?
Yep. So on permission, with people I know, I'm going to just call them up and say, I've decided I want my business to be primarily referral dependent. You could say, hey, for 2024, we're at a great time of year right now where you could say, I decided for next year, I want my business to be primarily referral dependent. So I'm going to put together a select group of people that I'm going to stay in touch with about real estate. What it would mean is I'll call you and you could say once a quarter. I usually just say periodically. The word I always,
Okay.
I'm going to give you a call periodically to see if you have any questions about real estate or if you know of anybody thinking about buying or selling. And then you can even say to them, look, I know most of the time you're not going to, so don't feel bad if you don't, but I just want permission to call and ask you. Is that okay? Yep. But so the key things is I have a select group of people, or I'm putting together a select group of people. I want to add you to that list. Would that be okay? And then you can fill in the other stuff like I was saying. But that's the main thing. If you're just out prospecting, knocking on doors, phone calls, as soon as you've tried for an appointment and you can't get it, but you feel like this is somebody you want, then I say, I've got a select group of people that I'd stay in touch with about real estate. I'd like to add you to that list. Would that be okay? Now, if it's somebody that I'm out prospecting for sale by owner, expired, something like that, I'm going to tell them I'll give you a call once a month. So rather than quarterly, those are the ones I'm going to say, I'm going to be calling you once a month just to check in to see if you have any questions. So the people you know that you feel like, hey, these guys are a little more serious, I might tell them instead of periodically I'm going to call you, I'm going to say to them, I'm going to give you a call once a month to just see what questions you have. So does that help, Michael?
Tons, thank you.
Cool. All right, anyone else? Questions? All right. Thank you for being here. I promise you, if you'll follow those 4 protocols, fixed in size, get permission, stay the personal contact at least once a quarter, email once a month, and then contact them. The key thing that you guys will forget on this is the purpose of the phone call is not to get a deal. It's to find the red. Now, the reason you're not worried about finding a deal is the green will take care of themselves. If you'll do this, they'll just call you when they're ready. You don't have to worry about asking them. When you call, those follow-up phone calls are just, hey, I just want to make sure you're getting the emails that I've been sending. Did you have any questions? Is there anything I can help you with? Okay.
Hey, Russ, how soon will we be able to get this recording?
It'll probably be up end of the day today.
Oh, awesome. Thank
Worst
you so
case
much.
tomorrow, but should be by the end.
Okay. Thanks. Okay.
Now, once we finish the class, I just have to wait for it to finish processing and then I can upload it to YouTube. So,
Okay. Thanks, Russ.
all right. Anything else I can help you guys with? All right. Thanks for being here. Have an outstanding rest of your day.
Thank you.
Welcome.